in pushing yourself to actually be productive and to have accountability, it can be tiring. So what do you actually do when you're tired of accountability and productivity?
Yeah. So make sure that within your circle, you actually have people that you can lean on that actually have fruit that's apparent in their garden. Some people have never harvested. Hello and welcome to the To My Sisters podcast. I'm Renee.
And I'm Courtney, and we are your online big sisters and hosts of the To My Sisters podcast.
Now, we are all about promoting the wellness, growth, and development of a community of sisters across the world.
And in today's conversation, we are going to be talking about boundaries and doing the work. One of you amazing sisters asked us to talk more about what we mean when we say you have to do the work. And so what does it look like, and what are the key aspects of doing the internal work of glowing up? We've already told you that this journey of glowing and growing is not going to be easy, but today we are going to break it down for you. So first of all,
I'm excited.
Very excited, but also to all the sisters who are listeners of the podcast, predominantly in terms of podcast platforms and stuff, we apologize that there was no podcast episode up last week. There was, however, a YouTube live stream, which you could definitely go and check out the replay of. And seems like some of the sisters really liked it.
Yeah.
Us being live. And it was actually so nice getting to talk to you all.
Yeah.
Engage. You lot are funny.
You guys actually have jokes. We really love it.
And so, yeah, we might bring that back kind of now, maybe, but maybe, and you might see it anyways. So definitely head over, definitely head over to our YouTube channel if you are listening to our beautiful voices, and you would like to listen to that replay. It is up. But today we are going to head into a dilemma, and very interesting one at that. A sister is in need of help.
Okay.
Get the Batmobile.
Oh dear.
We're on call.
Robin.
Okay. Hi girls.
Hey.
Firstly, I adore the podcast and binged it within a few weeks once I found it. And you have both inspired me so much to switch from procrastination into progress and be the main character in my own life. We are very grateful for that. Thank you so much. The only area I feel I am really struggling in are my friendships. I'm nearly 30 and have over the past decades shrunk my friendship group as I feel naturally happens. Throughout this time though, I have had my one best friend and sister, and I recently had to cut her out of my life. I suffered with a pretty heavy drug addiction from the ages of 16 to 20, which she supported me through. Wow, that was really hard to say. Which she supported me through, and have been clean now, coming up to 9 years.
Oh, nice.
Amazing.
Congrats, sis.
However, for my birthday earlier this year, her boyfriend brought drugs into my home and was speaking about quote unquote picking up in front of my African in-laws, which caused some issues within my family dynamic. I found this disrespectful in so many ways. Firstly, it felt like a mockery of my sobriety, which I felt I worked so hard to achieve. Secondly, it crossed my boundary of no drugs in my home. And thirdly, a huge disrespect of my new family, my mother and my father. I explained all of this to her, and I said I no longer felt comfortable having him in my home, and she appeared to understand, but days later, she blocked me on everything. I respect that she isn't ready. Okay. I respect that she isn't ready to face the issues in her relationship, and being held accountable may not be something she is ready for, but I am now so lost without having that sister bond. I feel that God has cleared my circle to help me further my purpose, and I am hoping through that to cultivate new friendships, but I am struggling to shake the feeling of loneliness. I have a great family and an amazing husband, but it isn't the same as having a sister squad. Do you have any advice on how to make new friends or find new people to connect with at this age? Thank you girls so much.
Wow.
Sister girl. Yeah, this is a lot.
Yeah.
This is a lot. So firstly, 9 years sober,
Bruh.
sis.
Honestly.
Well done.
That's so beautiful.
Well done.
Man.
On them drugs?
But
Sis, well done, because that is not easy at all in any form of addiction, especially something as addictive as drugs. Yeah. Secondly, your friend is trifling.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
Oh no. Well, to be okay, your friend will come to her boyfriend. Oh no. I'm
gonna let you finish, because the moment I heard that,
your best friend's boyfriend comes into your home knowing you've been 9 years sober and brings the drugs in front of your family, big boy disrespect. And the fact that I don't know specifically how you communicated to her that you were not comfortable with it and that you were no longer comfortable with him being in your home. I hope it, not even I hope, however you said it, whether you popped off or not, you were completely in the right, because I think that is the height of disrespect. Height of disrespect, to bring something that you know somebody is overcoming into their home in front of their family, such an inappropriate setting to do such a thing. And like you said, it caused risks within your family. So I think you were even very graceful to be like, okay, I don't want him in my home anymore, but of course I still want to be with you. I still want you to be my friend. You're my sister. You've helped me through so many seasons. Her blocking you, however, so extreme, so unnecessary, and very rude, because she's in association with the guilty party. And I don't know if she cut you off because maybe you saying, you know, I no longer want your boyfriend in my house caused rift in her relationship. But like you said, she has to take accountability. And she may not be ready for that, number one. And number two, she's currently blocked all your points of access to her. I do think, you know, try your best to get into a situation where you can have a conversation. I don't know if you call her or you have to go to her house. You have to say, you know, let's get into a conversation. Why did you block me? Why did you think that this was appropriate? I still want to be your friend, but there's clearly some things we need to talk over in terms of the boundaries I set between me and your partner, especially surrounding this specific situation. And if she doesn't want to hear you out, then she's making it clear that she doesn't want to do the work in your friendship, or she prioritizes the relationship between her and her boyfriend over your sisterhood, right? Which is fine. It's perfectly within her right. But at least you know where you stand. In terms of making new friends, I know it's tough to make new friends. And you're 30, sis. You're older than us. And making friends as an adult is hard.
Yeah, really difficult.
Making new friends as an adult is really hard. I think you have to lean on whatever social circles you currently have. And if you haven't got, if you feel like you're not around people often in terms of like maybe colleagues or whatever, enter into environments that you would naturally engage in and really enjoy. So like shows, activities, stuff like that. But I think personally, you just have to be open to getting to know somebody again. So just having a more open demeanor when you're out in terms of being more friendly to people, reaching out to people who you may have been friends with before, catching up. People, I think this is always a great opportunity to bring people who may be on the peripherals of your friendship circle. So like acquaintances, but people you think are really cool and you've engaged with a bit. I think this is a great opportunity to bring them closer. And that happens through conversation, making the effort, putting in the time. But you will find new friends. God always puts people in our paths who are coming to help us on our life's journey. We just need to be open to them. So just create that openness, that availability. And I hope that whatever pain you may feel after, maybe not losing this friend because it's not very clear as to whether the door is completely closed and whether this is a friendship that has completely ceased. But I think the heartbreak of just having this happen to you, I really hope that you do heal from it as well, and that you do find new friends, no matter how that looks. But okay, let it rip.
Miss CDB, you've already given us what was supposed to be given and more. You know, when you order a side of chips and they give you like a whole boat full of chips. You know, like when you order Five Guy chips and you know there's more chips in the bag.
In that bag. Ooh, you've actually made me want, I can't, but you've made me want some Cajun spice fries.
The Cajun spice fries. So you know they got like the mayonnaise, you know, like the little tap.
The little pot. Oh.
Anyways, you can see where our head's at.
We're hungry.
No, I think I loved all elements of your answer, and I love the fact that you even addressed Mr. Thing, because let's also remember that drugs are illegal. This man brought illegal substances into your
you
home.
should have called the police on site. I'm so sorry, sir, but there are some people at the door.
Not only that, but is your friend not concerned that her boyfriend has access to illegal drugs?
That is a really good point.
There's a lot going on.
That is a
there.
really good point.
And the fact that she blocked you, and her man is the one that's actually involved in illegal activities, and she was the one that supported you through the whole. There's a lot going on there, isn't it?
It's all filthy. It's all filthy and disgusting.
Not filthy. But I think that insofar as how much you've expressed to us, I think you've gone about it the right way by expressing your boundaries and expressing that was disrespectful, because it was
massively
not even the height of disrespect. If there was a championship league, they would have been
First place.
top
of the board.
top of the, they'd standing. They'd be standing. And I think it's important to be able to, articulate that boundaries have been crossed.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to articulate where, folks have gone wrong, not just in terms of him, but also her responsibility as a friend. Because I could never imagine Courtney doing something like that to me. And if she did, I would expect for her to expect me to check her. In the same way, vice versa, if I was to do something like that to her, I would expect for her to check me. So I think even in terms of like figuring out that dynamic with your former friend or like your whoever she is to you now, understanding that like there are certain boundaries that just cannot be crossed. And in terms of figuring out what she prioritizes, and if it is a case of this, exhibiting that she prioritizes this drug dealer, this her boyfriend over you, then at least insofar as where making new friends is concerned, I think as we age, you brought up a really good point about how difficult it is to make friends when you're older, because one point that you made in the live stream, if you haven't checked it out, go check it out, guys. One point that you made in the live stream insofar as like, when you get older, it becomes more difficult to sustain friendships and make new friends because you can no longer have friends from convenience, right? And I think also the dynamic of being married as well changes things insofar as like how much time you have to, developing new friends and accountability and all of that kind of stuff. So making new friends as you get older is all about intentionality. It's all about willingly placing yourself in spaces and engaging with people who actually are interested in cultivating those friendships. So whether it is going to things that you actually enjoy, meetups, brunches, whether it is actively reaching out to acquaintances and saying, hey, I think you're really cool. Would you like to go out, for dinner with me? In the same way that you would court somebody that you're interested in, like dating and marrying and stuff. Think about courting new people to be your friend or like to be friends with them. And also try not to be shy about it or feel some type of way about it. Because I think also there's this idea that when you get to a certain age, you should have your established friends. Like you should have your girl squad by the time that you're like 30, 35. You should have, sometimes that's just not the case and that's life. In the same way that sometimes you get to a certain age and you don't have your life partner or you don't have your soulmate or whatnot. And that's also perfectly fine. It's just about, again, intentionality and actually doing the work of reaching out to people that can actually help you when it comes to making new friends. And also realizing that you are deserving of good friendships, because I think sometimes the experience of losing friends, especially over the years, can call into question, well, do I really is it too late to make new friends that have that kind of depth, or is it too late to reach out to people because I'm not really sure how well I can retain those friendships? You are deserving of good friends. You are deserving of sisterhood. And part of the reason why we even started TMS is to help others, sisters like you, realize that, hey, it's actually never too late to make friends. Never too late to have sisters. And we also hope that at some point this can even be one of the spaces that you look to when it comes to like, oh, I'd like to make a new friend or hit up a new sister. And there's loads of sisters who are currently listening to this who either feel the same way or are open and interested in making new friends. So please, you're deserving of new friends. You're deserving of good friends. And don't think that you have to like backpedal or go back to like old friendships and stuff like that. Unless you're interested, of course. But don't think that you are basically bound by your experiences or bound by some of the things that occurred in the past when it comes to moving forward with new girlfriends. Put yourself in more of these spaces. Reach out to acquaintances because that's probably the easiest. Go out to actual events where girls are present. And start exploring friendship again. But sis, you've got this. So proud of you. 9 years sober. Do you know how mad that is? That like we are so proud of you. Do you know how mad that is?
Mad.
Absolutely
Mazzoline.
mad.
Like I think there's also a thing in there of your life has changed so much since you were younger, and a lot of us grow up with the friends of our youth. Do you know what I mean? But because your life has changed so much, it's like maybe you don't fit in with the people you used to be friends with, and like it doesn't age your needs and goals anymore, you know, because your lifestyle has changed so much. And it may require getting in, like you said, these environments, and you gave amazing advice, because it's getting in these environments now of people who are also on the same path as you. And I think that's that can be challenging because it's like, new, like out of my comfort zone. But that's where you find people that you can flourish with, hopefully. And yes, it will take time to establish deep relationships. But I also think as we go through this journey of life, it's actually such a blessing that we can bump into people who we feel so connected to, even if it's been a short period of time. And I think you just have to be open to making those connections, which you clearly are. But they will find you as well. There are so many women out here looking for friends. Just don't be stush. You have to be open and like kind of beg it a bit. Like, I want to be, I would like to explore being friends with you. I want to get to know you. Do it. Go out with your gal pals.
Go on, man. Cheeky.
So, doing the work. When it comes to this journey of glowing and growing, it's really not easy. And we've said it so many times in terms of glowing up mentally, physically, whatever it may be. It starts with going inside first. Like Renee always says, sometimes glowing up doesn't mean you're going up. Sometimes you need to go down.
That's right.
Deep down into yourself, and start digging up some stuff, start rebuilding some stuff. And all of that is work, right? So when it comes to committing yourself to this journey of glowing and growing internally and externally, right? What does it mean and what does it look like to do the work?
To do the work. Ooh, big question. I love it. So first of all, there's no universal, I guess, definition of doing the work, right? Oftentimes it looks very, very different in its manifestation for lots of different people. But doing the work is basically actually having practical actions that you've identified towards a very specific goal around becoming the best version of yourself. So doing the work involves, first of all, identifying who do I need to be in all areas of my life? So really breaking it down, right? So who do I want to be mentally? Like, what kind of person do I want to be mentally? I want to be whole. I want to be emotionally available. I want to be stable. I want to be an intellectual. So identifying in that space mentally, who do I want to be? Spiritually, who do I want to be? Whatever religion you are. For us, obviously Christians. Who do I want to be according to what God says about me? Who do I need to be according to my purpose, my calling? Who do I need to be in that area? And then thinking about it in all the other spheres of our life as well. In relationships, what does it look like to be a healthy partner? What does it look like to be a healthy friend, a sister, a mother? And then also the other areas of our life, the more, I guess, tangible and more like external stuff. Who do I want to be when it comes to my finances? I want to be self-assured. I want to be confident when it comes to managing my money. I want to be the kind of person who actually has access to financial capital. So for me, doing the work is intrinsically attached to identifying who I want to be in the various areas of my life that like put me together, basically. And then the second part of doing the work after identifying who I need to be is, what are the actual actions and steps I will take to become that person? So not just on a kind of like long-term basis, but also on a daily basis, what are the actions I can marry towards becoming the person I need to be? If I've identified that I need to be the kind of person that is a healthier friend, what are the things that I can be doing daily to actually do that,
to become that? How
can I start to chip away basically at the stone? I kind of, in terms of like, there you go, classic Renee analogy. I kind of see it as, you know, when you're like a sculptor, you get a hunk of rock, but you can see the like potential. Picture or the image or the potential in the rock, but you're not there yet insofar as like what everyone else can see and what you can see on the outside is this hunk of rock. Doing the work is basically chipping away at all of the rock till you get to the actual final picture of who you need to be. And I think that's a great analogy insofar as like sometimes it can be quite difficult. Sometimes it requires you to take different pieces out and put them back together and all of that kind of stuff. Sometimes it requires you to spend days just on one specific detail. Sometimes it requires you to, you know, speed the process up a little bit more. So even that whole process of like doing the work, sometimes it looks different, but for all intents and purposes, 1, identification of who you want to be. 2, the practical things that you're doing on a daily basis to become that.
I love that.
So that's how I conceptualize it.
I love that. I think that is the perfect conception of it though, because it's about the gap. Like there's a gap between who I want to be and who I am now. The gap is only filled by doing the work.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like that's when we say do the internal work, start doing the work. What we're saying is you don't just wake up one day as the person that you want to be, right? Every day. There's this quote that Michelle Obama said she was telling her daughter when she was talking about her book Becoming. I haven't read it yet, but my sister has. In fact, I bought her the book and I haven't read it, but whatever. When it comes down to it, every day is practice. And I think that learning that one day you're not going to show up and become, tomorrow you're not going to wake up and be the woman that you want to be, but you will be her one day.
Yeah.
But the days between now and then is practice for that, right? That somebody left an amazing comment that says, imagine the woman that, one of the sisters on YouTube left a comment saying, imagine the woman that you want to be. Every day show up as her. And sometimes it's hard to show up as her because you're not her yet. You've still got that analogy, I'm all over the place, but that analogy about chipping away at stuff is so relevant because when you first start sculpting out something, you chip away at the big things first. You know, okay, I'm trying to create something that's about this size. So you just start chunking big chunks that you know are obviously not going to be necessary. It's when you get to the finer details that things become a bit more techie because now you've really got to hold on to the vision of what it is you're trying to build. And I think having a vision for what you want your life to be, knowing that, okay, there's this woman that I want to become in every area of my life, like you so perfectly highlighted. What does that take? And am I willing to actually give it the time, the resources, the investment, and the energy to actually do that work, to actually take those steps between where I am right now and my goals? And for some people, that doing the work is not as hard as it is for other people. Yeah. And for some people, that doing the work is a lifetime commitment. Like even the sis that was in the dilemma, that's 9 years of sobriety is showing up every day to do the work. Because you don't know what today is going to be. And there's no guarantee that today is going to be the same as yesterday. There's no guarantee that these situations even get easier. And you don't know when you're going to get tempted with somebody putting something right in your face as a temptation. But you prepare for those days. You do the work for those days. Doing the work is about active effort towards yourself, right? Sometimes we always want people to change and we want them to act better and we want them to treat us better and we know what we do and do not deserve. But when it comes down to our own lives, we don't put in what we're asking for, right? We don't put in the same commitment. We don't put in the same time and the same energy. And so I think when it comes down to doing the work, it's really realizing and accepting that you're signing up to do something uncomfortable. And that you have to learn to be okay with that discomfort because you're stretching yourself. You're going to have to confront bad habits, allow other people to confront you in order to really strive and train to become the person that you want to be. And it's uncomfortable. And I think that that's the bit when we say do the work, it's like, it's so easy to just, this is too hard. I'm just giving up on this and I'm happy with where I am now. And that's fine. And I think complacency is one thing that you kind of constantly have to fight when you are glowing up mentally or whatever, especially because sometimes you're exhausted. And that kind of leads me on to talking about, I saw this reel yesterday that I reposted onto my story, which was so funny, which was basically somebody was like, all these things on my to-do list. And then she was just dancing, I don't want to do the work today. I don't want to do the work today. And I thought that was so, because no one really talks about that. You have all of these productivity pages and everyone telling you, come on, you can do this, get up. You know, you've got 24 hours in a day. 4 a.m. You know, and it's just like, no. I'm tired. Or even like something that I experienced, I don't want to be the bigger person. I want to sink into the deepest depths of petty that exist within me.
When I say the spirit of petty.
And let everybody know that if you want to move mad, I can move madder. And I think that that's like, people don't talk about that enough because everyone's doing up. No, I've grown, I'm healed. And it's like, I'm still healing. I'm on my way there.
I'm on my way.
I'm on my way there.
We take some detours.
And that's not to glamorize toxic behavior, but it's more so to say, in pushing yourself to be bigger, in pushing yourself to actually be productive and to have accountability, it can be tiring. So what do you actually do when you're tired of accountability and productivity?
Yeah, I absolutely love that you brought up that reel. And it makes me think of a meme that we posted on TMS like a while ago of like Omarion kind of like mad zen and just like focusing on my healing. And then you've got Ike Turner looking at you like,
I can pop off
zen. Saying back to my zen, but I'm gonna look at you. I'm gonna beat your ass. I'm gonna beat your ass.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have these conversations because, first of all, like as you said, everyone likes to front that when they're doing the work, it's a linear thing and that they're just like plodding along nicely and everything is calm.
Yeah.
And it makes me also think of like, for example, like health and fitness where people will be like, yeah, you know, I've lost like this amount of weight in this time. And it's like, it was all Gucci. But there were times that you actually ate like Twinkies or something behind, like, we don't know.
That's the real.
We don't know.
That's the
like,
real
even for me,
situation.
like there are days where I'm just like, I'm going to have the biscuits.
I ate like half a cake yesterday.
Fam, I'm going to do it. There's going to be days where, you know, like you wake up and it's like, I'm going back to sleep.
How about that?
How about that? And it's like that 8 extra minutes or that 10 extra minutes that you're forfeiting your career.
Yeah.
I did that. Or there's going to be times where it's like someone has actually peed you off.
Yeah.
And you're going to pop off at them.
Yeah. Or you say something you know you're not meant to say.
Absolutely. And I think it's about being realistic and giving yourself grace to know that there will be some days where you won't be able to do the work.
Right.
That doesn't detract from the fact that overall, like it's all about what's the phrase that I use often? It's the making sure that your like 10% or your 15% can cover you when you're minus 1%. So it's thinking about the overall and the bigger picture as opposed to just always focusing on the details. Because when you focus on the details, when you're doing the work all the time, one detail can derail you. Despite the fact that overall, in the grand scheme of things, you're still progressing forward.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to have a practice of zooming out.
Yeah.
So the easiest way for me to articulate it is when we're thinking about like health and fitness, right?
Yeah.
Maybe for all intents and purposes, you've been following your like health plan for like 2 weeks and then there's one day that you fall off. Sometimes we can use that one day of falling off to justify us not continuing to do the work. Yeah. Even though if we were to zoom out, you've actually still made a lot of progress. And in the grand scheme of things, that one day actually won't affect your progress.
Glad overall. You said that, because yesterday when I ate half that cake, I had to remind myself, girl, you've lost like 15 pounds.
Precisely. Exactly this. In one of our upcoming TMS pluses, we actually talk about insofar as like the importance of actually overeating occasionally to boost your metabolism, right? So I think it's just the importance of zooming out occasionally to understand that one bad day doesn't mean that you're going to have a bad week or a bad month or a bad life.
And you control that.
Exactly. It's really all about perspective.
Yeah.
So even if, for example, you popped off at your friend, there's always grace. Go and apologize, right? And understand that you are human. I think that's the main problem. We forget that we are human and that we're going to fail.
This is it.
It's so easy to be like, oh, I'm going to give you grace because I know that you're going to fail. Or I know that, you know, you're not perfect, so it's cool. I think many of us are still under the delusion that we're perfect and that when we start doing the work, we're always going to be able to do the work and we're always going to be able to do it alone. I think it's really, really important to also understand that having accountability can also help us when it comes to trying to get back on track or when we've had that one day.
Yeah.
So for example, if I've had a day where I'm like, damn, I didn't do what I needed to do, knowing that I have support systems, I can call Courtney and be like, Courtney,
was I in the wrong here?
Do you get? Like, it's really, really important to make sure that you have people around you or systems in place to make sure that even if you do fall off, you can get back on track relatively easily and quickly. But I think it really, really starts with you getting into the mindset of like, me committing to do the work means that I understand there will be days where I don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But the majority of my days, I will do the work.
I love that.
I will do the work. And also incorporating rest. Because I think sometimes we
you
think
were
that
reading my mind. You were actually reading my mind. I was literally just thinking that.
Bruh, there are some people think that doing the work is, I've got to be switched on every single day.
All the time.
I have got to be on it like Sonic. I have got to be, I'm doing the work. That's tiring.
Yeah.
And oftentimes your body does benefit you the most when you're resting.
Yeah.
So actually even inputting days where it's like, I'm doing the work overall, but I also understand the necessity of rest.
Yeah.
And I'm giving I'm giving myself space and time to actually do other things aside from doing the work.
Yeah.
So if you are, for example, doing the work to like mend your finances and, you know, increase your credit score, actually building in days or times where you can actually spend money on yourself that's a little bit higher than you normally budget is important.
Yeah.
Or if you are committed to health and wellness, in building in days or times where it's like, I'm going to enjoy the birthday party, or I'm going to enjoy the celebration without thinking about like calories or like my body and stuff like that, is important. When you're on a journey of like, you know, healing and dealing with your trauma, actually having a day to just watch Netflix as opposed to doing the whole, I'm journaling today, I'm getting all of my feelings. I need to be super productive. And having days where you do nothing.
It's so important.
Oh, and this one is beating us up because, listen, for all intents and purposes, I can definitely admit that I'm all about, you know, telling people to rest. But occasionally I need to bite the bullet myself and be like, Renee, you need to rest, you know. But I've nutted on quite a bit.
No, but you are so spot on with everything that you said, because with resting, with doing the work, it is emotionally laborious. Yeah. Do you get what I mean? In terms of like, I think we need to change our perspective a little bit on work. Because this is a constant effort.
Good, yeah.
It's not a job, right?
That's right.
So sometimes it's like, with our normal works, you pump out 8 hours a day, then you know you're going to come home and just, I can shut it off. But with doing the work on your emotions and stuff, sitting down and overcoming your traumas, or sitting down and analyzing your bad spending habits and stuff like that, it is constant. Like, doing the work is all about, what do you do in the face of your decisions and what makes you behave the way that you behave? So you're kind of not necessarily always being overcritical and over self-aware, but you're just thinking to yourself, okay, do I know myself enough? And am I comfortable with the person that I am seeing in the mirror right now? With that though, it's tiring sometimes. And there are some parts that are more emotionally taxing than others. So for example, if you go to therapy is so tiring. Ooh. It's so exhausting. But maybe if you're sitting down once a month and putting down a budget, that's different. Do you know what I mean? That might not be as challenging. And so I think incorporating different levels of intensity when it comes down to your glow up journey actually really matters. So you may want to split up. Okay, I'm going to focus on physical. I'm going to focus on mental, spiritual, emotional, things like that. But I'm also going to allocate time to this so that I know when I can disengage. Not disengage from being a better person, disengage from doing the active work, and rather just give myself time to see the fruits and to see whether it's working. So go out with your friends, go out with your partner, take yourself out to get pampered and stuff like that. But always make sure that it's kind of framed in the sense of, I've done some work. I've reframed the way I think about certain things. Now let me see if I can live it out. Now let me see if I can see the fruits of that work. Then we can revisit doing the work again. Or you may be somebody who wants to daily integrate it into your day. Then you may see it as, okay, let me do, for example, myself, I do like 30 minutes of journaling a day. I just pick up my journal and I literally verbal diarrhea, everything. Everything is on that page. Today I felt like I spent too much, or today I ate and it's not me being like OCD about it. It's more so me just taking time to just be reflective and be like, okay, like, and then I pray at the end, okay, God, help me here, give me grace here. I feel like this is where I feel a bit anxious. I've got this decision to make. And it just helps me stay on top of my mental state, because even it can feel like sometimes you're mentally cluttered. There's so much information coming to you from, you know, somebody's just posted something on their Instagram stories about healing. There's somebody's, you know, you just go and listen to the Two My Sisters podcast and Renee's coming at your neck. And then, do you know what I mean? And then you get this bank notification, you owe this much money. Then it's like, there's so much and you're trying to rise above it all, but you kind of feel like you're drowning. And so really take time, give yourself time. It requires so much time to be able to do this, and you're worth investing that time into yourself. But I think rest, enjoying yourself, giving yourself serious affirmations, and allowing yourself to, like I said, enjoy the fruits of the work that you are doing. You know, enjoy going out with your friends, enjoy dating, and realizing that I'm so much less toxic than I used to be. Pat yourself on the back about that. Or I've grown tremendously pat yourself on the back. Look at your bank statement and say, you know, I'm going to, like you said, put a little pot aside. Once I hit that savings target, I'm going to buy myself something nice. And it's not a gateway into falling into a bad cycle and bad habits again. And also you're allowed to make mistakes. And I think the way we frame the mistakes that we make is sometimes we see it as, I failed.
Yeah.
But actually, it's just an opportunity to grow some more and analyze where maybe there's still a little bit of, like we were saying with that analogy of the sculptor, there's some fine tweaking that needs to be made because you thought you would react well to this and then you didn't. So why? Yeah. You know, and I think it's just another aspect of the journey, right? It's another hurdle in our way. It's not a wall. You can really jump over it. You can choose to do the work to jump over it. But when it comes to doing the work, where do you start? What are the practical elements you can do to say, okay, I'm going to start working on myself mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all the stuff, all the it's. How do you start? Where do you start?
All right. In terms of where I like to start, I'm very what's the word? I can't find another word for this, but I'm very basically anal about this. Insofar as like I take, I guess, my conception of myself, and the best way that I guess, articulate myself often is writing. So I love to write everything down. I'm a writer. It's something I love to do. So I think, first of all, define or figure out what is your best medium for dissecting yourself.
Right.
It might be that you need to like talk it out. It might be that you need to like record yourself. That's also something I do occasionally. But for me, the best way that I like to like break down and dissect myself is to write about myself. Yeah. So I would encourage you to do a written exercise where you take all of the themes or all of the areas that you want to like glow up in and write it down. And when you do write down mental, spiritual, to me, I see like a board with all of the different boxes of where I am at. You need to do an assessment of where you're currently at and where you want to go. Because oftentimes we can be like, we've identified there is a gap, or we've identified that there is a sculpture that needs to be made, but we don't actually assess how much rock am I starting with, or where is the starting point of the gap? That's or like really if I'm good. Running the race, where's the start line? We're often so focused on the finish line that we get discouraged when we get to the middle because we didn't realize just how big the gap was. Ooh, so really, listen, really assess, where am I at right now? And I think it's also really, a lot of people, when they assess where they're at, the temptation is to be overwhelmingly negative. So we always think, I want to be here, I'm starting here, and where I'm starting is actually a bad place. Yeah. That's actually not always the case. Yeah. Be as cognizant of your positive traits and the positive things that you can do, as well as the negative. So if we take money, for example, and finances, assess where are you at. Maybe you actually already have a savings goal, and maybe you've already been saving, say like £50 a month or something like that, but you'd like to raise that to 100 or 200 or whatever it is. Give yourself the pat on the back and say, I have managed to save this amount of money. I would like to save this amount. Yeah. So at least you've acknowledged the good things that you do. Because one thing that I actually noticed in a lot of the conversations I've had with my friends and family is we never give ourselves credit where credit is due. Like we actually never do. Yeah. Like,
and as women, sometimes we struggle to.
Exactly. And it's like, if you can't identify, the good stuff you're doing right now, will you be able to give yourself, the pat on the back that you need when you get to the place that you want to go? Or will you just kind of be like, oh, I got there, and not really celebrate yourself? I think as women, we really do need to learn how to celebrate ourselves in every stage that we're at, whether we're at the beginning, the middle, or the end. So start with figuring out the places and the areas that you want to glow up in, figuring out where you're at, and assessing the good and the bad, especially the good, because you need to be able to build from the good. It's not always bad.
That's sis? Good.
Honestly, like, give yourself a pat on the back. Like, yeah.
And that's your momentum, really.
Precisely. So really, like, affirm yourself and say, hey, I'm not quite there yet, but where I am right now, I'm not mad at it. I'm actually not mad at it.
I'm not at all.
And then identify a long-term goal that you might have for yourself. I like to be very, very practical in terms of like defining exactly when I would like to get it. But of course, sis, you always have to have some flexibility because things happen. But have an ideal, I would like to achieve this in my finances by this year. And then reverse engineer. Reverse engineering is literally your best friend when it comes to doing the work and when it comes to actually figuring out a practical plan to get to where you want to go. So I'm here, I have these key skills. I want to get here by this time, by this date. How do I get from A to B? Or how do I get from A to C? You need to figure out what B is. And then reverse engineer. So on a monthly basis, I need to do this with my finances. And then on a weekly basis, I need to do this. And then on a daily, really, really break it down, because sometimes we get discouraged because our goal seems too big, when it's not necessarily big. We just haven't figured out the jumping stages that we have to go in between to get there. Do you get what I mean?
The bites.
Exactly. It's like if I'm traveling from, the UK to France, it's like, France is far away. Okay, there's Eurostar and it has a couple of stops.
It has a couple of stops.
You need to identify the stops as well, because you might get off a bit too early or you might get off a bit too late. So even understanding, what does my journey look like? What does my destination look like? But what does my journey also look like? And one thing you might actually find is that you might actually need to stay on a bit longer, or you might have to make some changes and stuff like that. So even conceptualizing the glow up as a journey when you've identified the steps is super important. And also try to identify multiple ways to get there too. So for example, taking the finances, cool, I want to save up, say, $1,000 or 1K by 6 months time. What are the different ways that I can do that? How can I be flexible? Because it might be that, I need to save X amount from my paycheck every week to hit that goal. Or it might be, I need to make money in this area to get to that goal. So understanding that there's also different ways to get to your goal is important, especially if you hit a roadblock. Because when you hit a roadblock and you're like, I was on this route and now you're like, I've been thrown off and all that kind of stuff.
It's not over.
Literally write down the ways in which you can get to your goal, get from A to B to C. So that if you do get, anything happens, cool, I've got a contingency plan, or I can fall back on this, or I can fall back on that. And that's kind of how I conceptualize the practical steps of how do I actually manifest, or how do I actually actively start here, but end here. Is what I would say.
I love that. And I love the reason why I love it is it's simple. And I think that is one of the key elements to doing the work. Someone else's work is not your work. Somebody else's method is not your method. Someone else's journey is not your journey. And so you actually have to be honest with yourself, what will work for you, because it's easy to say, I'm gonna wake up at 5 a.m. too, because that's what Renee does. I can't do it. Me? No. And I could put so much pressure on myself to be like, but this is working. I can see the fruits of it in her life, but she's not me, because that works for her. That works for her body. That works for her mind, and that works for her goals. But for me, maybe waking up at 9 a.m. works better, and that's just a very small example, but actually saying, maybe therapy works for somebody, maybe it doesn't work for me. But if you do need therapy, head to betterhelp.com/2mysisters. But maybe therapy works for somebody else, it might not work for me, or vice versa. Maybe talking to your friends is a better option for you, or maybe talking to your partner is a better option for you, or maybe in terms of my financial goals, buying a house makes more sense for me, or maybe renting makes more sense for me. But laying those out to say, okay, these are the goals that I have. This is where I want to be, myself, me, the things that I consider to be inspiring, the things that I consider to be a reward for my efforts, the things that I enjoy and that I'm actually passionate about. Because it's easy to base your goals on what other people are saying is great. It's easy to say, I want to buy a house, but you have no investment strategy. You just want to buy it to have it. And then you realize it might be more of a liability than you even wanted to take on because it doesn't align with your goals. So I think it's more important to really take time to be like, what works for me and how can I simplify it so that I do not get overwhelmed? And I think that's one of the key things that can happen, and why you end up feeling tired of accountability and productivity, because you're overwhelming yourself. You're trying to change too much too fast.
I love that.
And you have to be like, you have to pace yourself when it comes to this race. You really have to pace yourself and say, you know what, okay, I know finances, my emotions, my family dynamic, my relationships, all of these things need some adjusting and it needs me to change. But right now I have the energy to focus on this. I think it's important to pace yourself. It's important to tell yourself, this is what I like, this is what I want, this is where I want to be, but I'm not going to try and do everything at the same time. I'm going to give myself the grace of patience. And I think we can struggle sometimes in wanting to be better. And even sometimes, like we were talking about before, sometimes even in the face of our own failures, we can get frustrated because we think, why aren't I fixed by now? Like, why aren't I just better? Getting better is a verb thing. It's a doing thing. You have to just keep doing the work and revisiting it and really allowing yourself and giving yourself the room to grow, giving yourself the room to say, maybe I didn't live up to this, or maybe I need to be going a bit faster, but actually this pace works for me right now. And if even vice versa, for some of the girls that are like, I'm just, I'm working on myself, and you've been working on the same attitude problem, or you've been working on the same mistake that you keep making, or behavioral issue that you have for way too long. And sometimes we know when it's too long. It's like, girl, everyone is telling you, and this is holding you back. Like, this is really holding you back. And you haven't even really tried. And when you're not giving maximum effort to things. When you're like, I'm just going to pop off because I like it. And it's like,
I'm just working on myself.
And it's like, I'm working on myself. God's working on me. And it's like, but you're not putting in the effort. You're not doing the work to hold yourself back. Yes, there will be times where things get so overwhelming and the bad stuff pops out. But are you actively actually trying to not be dysfunctional? Have you actually stopped yourself from being toxic, or are you basically trying your luck? Because you're going to end up pushing people away. You're going to end up pushing your goal further and further back as well, because you keep I kind of see it as like, I think we were talking about something like this in one of our previous episodes, but when you don't learn a specific lesson, you keep being taught the same lesson over and over and over again until you choose to actually learn the lesson and get the wisdom and really sort yourself out and decide, you know what, as difficult as it may be, I'm choosing to actually just make the hard decision. I'm choosing to actually do what I know is necessary. Until you tell yourself those things, you're just going to keep going in cycles and cycles and cycles. And so for a lot of us, we can get stuck in our glow up journey and our growing journey. We get stuck on the same issues. Everyone keeps pointing out the same flaw to you, or you're not making the hard decisions in your career, or you keep refusing to go back to university. And yet everything is telling you, get better qualifications and all of that. But you're like, no. You've hit a roadblock and you've decided to just go round and round and round the roadblock in the same roundabout, instead of actually saying, I'm just going to choose an exit right now and just go. And so choose to make the hard decisions and stop. Sometimes we are too generous in the grace we give ourselves.
No, for sure.
And it's like but in the same vein of accountability, you have to be able to G-check yourself. You need to be so self-aware enough that when you're not given 100%, and sis, like don't give yourself credit. When you're not given 100%, you could feel disappointed in yourself and yet be able to look at your life and think, actually, I'm really trying. But then there are other times where you feel disappointed in yourself and you look back and you think, I didn't really try.
You didn't try.
I didn't really try.
You absolutely didn't try. And listen, when we have conversations about, generational trauma and generational this, generational that, you're continuing the cycle by not choosing an exit. Yeah. And I'm a firm believer of the fact that there are certain things that you experience in your life. There will always be periodic exit points in that journey. You need to be willing to actually choose the exit. I love that you said that, because sometimes we just think, we get stuck in the journey.
Yeah, and you think you're stuck.
We're stuck at the bus stop, but the buses are passing us by one one to get to your destination. And I think that's why it's important to also articulate exactly, obviously life happens and sometimes time frames change, but actually having very concrete and very specific goals can help you, because at least by this time, realistically, I should have done this. Yeah. And also being very proactive to assess your progress is important. Not assess in the sense of, am I there yet? But more so, how far have I come? Yeah. How far have I actually come? So good. And another thing that some of us don't really do, that we should do more of, is actually ask other people too. Like, I'm such a firm believer, especially in the attitude thing or like character department. Character is often manifested through our engagements with other people. So how can you find out if your character has, improved? Ask other people. was I actually extending grace to that person? The way that I spoke to you in this situation, how did you feel? How did that make you feel? Ask the people that you have, ask the people who are closest to you, can you give me some kind of indication as to how I've been doing? You don't necessarily always have to share with them, I'm on this glow up journey and this is what I'm going through and all of that kind of stuff. It can be as simple as me tapping Courtney and being like, Courtney, what did you think about like when I spoke to you like this, and get feedback? Because a lot of us go on this like self journey and this self glow up and self. But oftentimes the self is manifested with other people. Yeah, of course. And you need to know in terms of like assessing how well am I doing, sometimes other people can give you insight. And I think it's important to note that all of these things exist on a spectrum. And really what we're doing here is a balancing act. Because even that, too much of a good thing can always be toxic. Because sometimes when you do wrap yourself around other people, you go the other way of like, oh my gosh, like
you become hypercritical,
people pleasing, all of this 100%. Kind of stuff starts to creep in.
And you become insecure.
Exactly.
You become insecure because you constantly think you're falling short of the mark you've set yourself. You have to balance. You have to balance.
And I think in any glow up journey, in anything that you do, just in general, it's really about striking the balance as opposed to just, I guess, focusing on the self or focusing on other people. It's the balance of those two voices and understanding that whilst both are important, there needs to be harmony in the input.
Fact.
There needs to be harmony because, focus on the self too much and you're stuck. Focus on other people, you're stuck. It's that, how do I like grapple with the two such that I can actually move forward?
I like that. I like what you said about learning to have to balance what other people think of you and their response to you and what you think of you, and also how much you're telling yourself you've succeeded and stuff like that. I think there needs to also be kind of a boundary of how often you assess yourself and how people can assess you. So then that brings us to talking about boundaries.
Yes.
When it comes to doing the work, you are basically relaying new boundaries and new expectations for yourself and for other people, right? And the way you engage in other people, all of that becomes reframed and it becomes, and it starts to change. So how do you set new boundaries for yourself? How do you then communicate those boundaries too?
All right. We'll deal with the setting, then we'll deal with the communication. In terms of setting boundaries, one thing that I found really, really helps is you need to figure out what your values and principles are as a person before you can set your boundaries. Because if you don't know why you've set the boundary or why this is important to you, you won't realize it's an issue until that boundary is overextended. So what are your key values and principles on everything? Like genuinely, what's your philosophy, your theology? How do you see the world? How do you see yourself and your role within it? And then you can start thinking, okay, cool, what are the boundaries here? One of the exercises I would encourage you to do is to write a personal mission statement. So what is your purpose and all of that? You know, all that stuff that we do at the beginning of the year, you know, vision planning and stuff.
What is your mission?
What are your values? What is important to you? Could it be that, you know, when it comes to just life in general, you are definitely a community focused person? Or, you know, what are the key things that you actually believe about you, the world, and other people? So even having those three, because sometimes when they bleed into each other, that's when overextension of boundaries comes into play. So yes, you love other people, but you also find it important. Like one of your key values is I need to like learn to love myself, or I need to spend more time with myself. So understanding that as a value then extends itself into a boundary insofar as if I need to spend more time with myself, I'm spending, you know, a minimum amount of at least 2 hours or 3 hours a day investing in myself. That translates into the boundary of you can't engage with me during that time. So figure out what your values are, your principles are, what's important to you first. Write them down if you can, because sometimes we forget. Often. We say them in our mind and we're like, oh yeah, forget. Listen, you forget your values and you forget your, you know, your principles. Write them down, make it plain, put it somewhere. And also make sure that when you are creating your, you know, your values and your principles, assess what's actually going into creating those values and principles too. So again, for us, our faith is a big thing when it comes to setting our values and our principles. It might be other things that, you know, are really, really key to you, like philosophy or other, you know, indicators, culture, that kind of stuff. Your politics. what is important to you, write it down and make it play. Hang it on your, your bedroom, your bathroom wall.
Yeah.
Write it down on your phone, but have a reference point so that you know what's important to you. And then you can start writing your boundaries. So when it comes to, other people, how often do you want to engage or communicate with other people? What is the way that you actually receive love? What is the most effective way that you actually enjoy being loved by other people? How often can you communicate with other people in a week? What times do you want to communicate with other people? All of these things are super, super important boundaries that are an extension of your values and your principles. And then when it comes to communicating your boundaries, it very much depends on the context, the people, and when these things need to be communicated. So for example, one of the analogies that I used in an earlier episode around understanding that you are a galaxy and the things and people that exist in your galaxy are worlds. Yeah. Different worlds have different requirements for life to exist on them. Yeah. So on Earth, we need... I'm really doing a lot. Go on, go in. On Earth, plants and humans need, oxygen and all of these other gases to make life actually tenable on this world. Whereas if you go to Mars or the Moon or Pluto, there's different circumstances or different things that are required for life to actually be tenable. Yeah. You need to be cognizant of the kinds of relationships that you have. And you also need to be able to feel comfortable as well articulating your boundaries. And again, it's part and parcel of doing the work, because part of doing the work is respecting yourself and loving yourself. So in fact, before we even jump to this whole galaxy stuff, let me take it a step back and talk about the fact that you need to set boundaries with yourself.
I was literally going to say that. Let me even take
it a step back. Yeah. You need to set boundaries with yourself.
You need to learn how to not violate your own boundaries.
Precisely. Because if you can't respect yourself, you can't articulate to other people how to. I can't respect Courtney if Courtney doesn't know how to respect herself. Yeah.
And also you can't lay out boundaries if you don't know what your boundaries are.
Exactly. And if you normalize overextending boundaries in your own corner and by yourself, then you're not going to be able to G-check anybody else that crosses your boundaries.
This is it.
Because you haven't even experienced what it means to have a healthy boundary within yourself. Yeah. So if it is a thing where you set a boundary of, in health and fitness, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Or if it is a thing where it comes to relationships and you're like, I'm going to set the boundary of, I don't want to engage in any physical activity with you until we've set a precedent, right? If you haven't set those boundaries for yourself, you're not going to be able to set boundaries for other people when it comes to engaging with you. Yeah. So once you've done that, then you can be like, okay, cool. Let me actually articulate my boundaries. If you're at the beginning of a relationship with anybody, platonic or, romantic, I think it's easier to set boundaries then, because at least there's no expectations that are already present in the relationship.
What do you mean?
Insofar as if I've just met you and I'm just getting to know you, it's a lot easier to say, these are my values, these are my principles, this is what I, all that kind of stuff. Depending on the relationship you have with someone going forward, if you've already set a precedent where somebody has been overextending a boundary that you haven't set or overextending a boundary that you haven't communicated well, sometimes it can be difficult to actually pull them up and be like, hey, this thing that you do makes me feel uncomfortable. And on my journey of, self-discovery and stuff like that, I would like for you to respect me in this way. That can yield very uncomfortable conversations and situations, because no one likes to be articulated that they have been disrespectful or they have been doing something that makes you feel uncomfortable.
100%.
However, it's important that you do it, because you need to trust that that person loves you enough to basically adapt and understand that you're doing the work, and that this is not just for the good of, you guys' relationship, but for the good of you and your personal development. Yeah. So in terms of communicating, again, depends. But for me, I like direct. In this season of my life right now, I prefer it to be direct. I would encourage you to try and do it directly, because at least you're laying down the expectations and principles and stuff like that in a way that both parties can understand. And don't be afraid to articulate your boundaries. So many of us the comments that I saw underneath some of our lives, we've really done one. Under our live, and some of the comments, some of the comments that we get in the DMs is constantly, even some of our dilemmas, a lot of them are a result of overextended boundaries. Right. When we think of friends with benefits, or when we think of oh, I really like this person and we've done X, Y, Z,
Yeah.
but like it's not turning into anything more, or they're not respecting me. A lot of it is to do with overextended boundaries.
Listen, you have to feel confident enough to be like, I'm on this journey. I'm putting in all this effort. I need everyone to cooperate.
Yeah.
I really need everybody to cooperate. Please get it together, because and it doesn't have to be in a rude way at all. In fact, most people in your life will be more than happy to serve you in that way. And I think that's one thing we do not give people the benefit of, believing that they actually want to love us and that they actually are there to serve us. Yes, there may be people in your life, and this is why it's so important to heal from past disappointment and rejections and past violations of your boundaries. Because you can think, if I ask, I'm asking for too much. If I say don't do this, I'm being too needy. I'm being too defensive. I'm being too cold. And it's not that at all. Or I'm being too rude, or I'm being too overbearing. Not at all. Actually, if you lay these things out, majority of people in your life are going to be like, because I am here on this journey with you, because I'm your sister, because I'm your friend, because I am your partner, and I love you and I want to see you become your best self, it actually makes me glad to know how I cannot offend you. Do you get what I mean? It makes me happy to know that I know how to love you better. And I think that that's how we should frame it. I'm not coming at you. I'm not attacking you. Actually, I'm letting you know you supported me so well so far. Please, can you help support me more in this specific way? I've identified now for myself what I receive as love, what I receive as respect, what I receive as accountability, what I receive as partnership. I really want you to help me in this way, and I believe you can. But then there's also the conversations you have with people who have violated your boundaries previously. I think it's important to not make it a reflection. And one of my friends said this recently. I don't want it to be a reflection or an assassination of my character. I want it to be you seeing it as an action. And the same way you would give yourself grace if you failed on your action plan to glowing up and, you know, you overspent or you overate or whatever it may be. The same way you would give yourself grace to pick yourself up tomorrow and act right is the same grace and patience I want you to have with me to be able to forgive me today and trust that tomorrow I'll act right. And I think that that's something we also need to learn to extend in creating the environment for people to say, I want to live up to your expectations, because it can be very challenging if you are with someone who has decided to make maybe a more radical change in their life, especially if you may not be on that same journey. I'm thinking to the girl, the sis in the dilemma. If you and your friends do drugs regularly and then you're like, actually going team sober, it's going to take a bit of an adjustment for them to get used to the new you, but there has to be boundaries there for them to respect the fact you are going on this journey. How can they support you even if it's from a distance? And I think it's leaning onto reminding yourself of the fact these people have loved you. They do love you. They do want to journey with you. That is what they're expressing by still being your friend or your partner or whoever, or still being a family member to you. Or if you are unclear as to whether somebody wants to do it and be close to you, ask. And we were talking about this in the 3 red flags thing. You need to communicate. Don't just assume. Don't just assume that everyone in your life can handle the new you and where it is you are going. Talk to them about it, because whilst this is a very personal decision, like we said, the manifestation of your self-growth is how you engage with people and community. So by proxy, they've been roped into this too. So you actually have to lay it out as, this is the decision I'm going on. I'm not asking you for permission, but I'm asking, are you willing to go on this journey with me by loving me this way? That's all I ask from you as a friend. And I love what you brought up. Don't violate your own boundaries. It's so easy to not respect yourself. It's so easy to say, this is, for example, when I started my health and wellness journey, right? A key element of it is rest. But it's so easy when my bedtime comes or when it's my day off and I've scheduled this day off to be like, I'm going to stay up a bit longer to watch Netflix because I enjoy it. But it's like, you're disrespecting yourself right now. Because if you had told your friend on the phone, all right, babe, I've got to leave, I've got a meeting. And she's like, nah, I like this conversation. Stay on the phone with me. It's like, do you not want me to get this bread? Like, why are you trying to distract me? But that's the thing. We are our own worst enemies sometimes. And I think that's something you you really have to identify within yourself the boundaries that I have laid out, the parameters, the schedule, the things that I said I will and will not engage with. I really do have to hold myself accountable.
Yeah.
I really do also need to realize that God is holding me accountable. Community needs me to be held accountable. My family needs me to be held accountable to not violate these things. And even more importantly, to not violate these things, even if nobody else is around to reprimand me.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's easy to violate your own boundaries when no one's really going to know. But you know, God knows. Like you, and that needs to be something that you take seriously, not recurringly disappointing yourself. Because I think it leads to you feeling like you cannot trust yourself. And I've been there. I've been through times where I felt like I'm trying to get better, but I don't know if I can even bet on myself to become the person that I want to be, because I've let myself down in so many instances. How many times have I said I'm going to lose weight? How many times have I said I'm going to wake up early? How many times have I said I'm going to do X, Y, Z? And procrastination, laziness, and all of those things, I've let them take over me. So I think it's important to realize that in showing up for yourself daily, whether anybody is around you to hold you accountable or not, it's setting precedence to yourself, to your spirit, and to your mind to know she shows up. When she says she's going to do something, she does it. And I can trust her. My body can trust me. My mind can trust me. My spirit can trust me, because I constantly prove it to myself that I can hold myself accountable. I can show up for myself. If no one else will show up for me, I will show up for me. Because a lot of us always say, well, I came into this world alone. If I've got me, myself, and I, you know, Beyonce, that's all I've got in the end. That's what I found out. Have you actually? Have you?
Said you got your own back, but you don't.
But you don't. So that is something that you have to constantly prove to yourself, to constantly show up for yourself and realize that you don't have to do that alone. You can then open up to other people. And maybe if you are struggling to be consistent, lean on the consistency of other people. You know, get a mentor, get a friend, talk to somebody who deeply loves you, who may have to commit a bit more time to you to be like, for example, my health, when I first started my health and wellness journey, it's something that I've been so consistent with for my whole life. And I had to draw on you because you're super disciplined with it. You enjoy it. And you had to give me a bit more time than you usually would to be like, okay, Courtney, how's your diet going? Here's a workout plan. Here's X, Y, Z. I had to lean on your consistency and your dependency, or your dependability, in order to then myself feel confident enough to be consistent for myself and know what showing up actually looks like. And I think it's important to lean on the people in your life who you can ask that of, if that makes sense. Like asking them, can you give me a bit more time? Can you call me more? Can you hold me accountable here and actually show me what it looks like to show up constantly? Because then you kind of hear that person's voice. Like I would go to eat something and I'll hear Renee be like, is that really going to help you? Is that? And I'm like, damn. And that's how you start rewriting yourself. And in that, it highlights, be careful who you allow to surround you when you're on this journey, because those voices become internalized. And it's easy when you are thinking, what do I do at this junction? Where do I turn? It's so easy to be swayed by the voices of other people in your life. And God forbid them be voices of dysfunctional people and people who themselves need to go on their own journey. That's a whole different conversation itself. But guard your circle. Because when you guard your circle, you guard your mind, and you need to make that a radical pursuit. I am very particular with who I accept advice from, I accept wisdom from, who I even allow myself to be in the environment of. Because some people are very inspiring and then some people are very detrimental.
Absolutely. Boy, oh boy, that was a sermon and a half. Especially what you were, especially what you were saying about guarding your circle. I think it's so important. Even, listen, there are some folks as well who from far away or from a distance look like they're healthy, they're functional. And I think we find this a lot on social media as well, where a lot of people can present as functional and healthy when really under the mat, they're kicking ice under the fridge.
Mad dysfunction. That is a very toxic thing to do, you know, because I do it too. If an ice drop, you kick it under the fridge. It's like,
well, you know, when something drops and it's like really small.
Let's go under the bed. That's how I used to clean my bedroom. Under my bed, I've broke so many beds by doing that. No, biggest man thing. My mum hates me. Do you know how many of my beds I've broken? Because when I was younger, obviously now I'm grown, but like I'll just
sweep stuff under the rug.
Everything.
No one will know, but eventually things pile up under the rug.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you can't sit on the rug because you can literally feel the things underneath it popping through. So even in terms of like who you're assessing for, you know, accountability and consistency and stuff like that, make sure the fruits are actually apparent in their life as opposed to just, you know,
the theory.
There's a lot of theorists out there. There's and
the appearance. You have to inspect everything, test everything to make sure that it's actually truly what it is.
Because some people are mad.
And some people are liars.
And oh goodness me. We what do you call it? We suggested that you guys read this book in one of our mailing lists.
Yeah.
Hashtag if you're not in the mailing list, then you should be. But
TwoMySisters.com.
Absolutely. Called Skin in the Game. And it's all about, in terms of like who you can trust to give you advice, always trust the people that actually have skin in the game. The people that, you know, you're leaning on for consistency and all of that kind of stuff, are the fruits apparent in their life? And I think even thinking about like health and wellness, but also in other areas, right? Like when I think of like finances and stuff, it's Courtney that I go to because it's actually apparent in her life.
I really appreciate that. That's such a big compliment.
When it comes to like side hustling or like getting the bag, it's Courtney that I can lean on because I've seen it manifest in her life, right? Be careful and be conscious of the people that profess they want to support you or give you advice and the fruits are not there.
Ooh.
Okay? The fruits, they haven't even planted
seed from a fruitless tree. You cannot give seeds from a fruitless tree.
Honestly.
And that is one thing I've learned hard.
Are you going to learn how to bake from a jeweler? You're not. That's not their profession. They've not done it before. And this is not to discredit anyone from giving advice, but it's like if you're going on a journey of like glowing up or if you're actively looking for points of reference or mentorship and stuff like that, find people who are actually in that or have been in that because they can actually give you first-hand experience. I think experience is a hell of a teacher. In fact, I think experience is the greatest.
The best teacher.
It's the best because theory is often different to practice.
Yeah.
It's so different. And it's just like common sense, really. Sometimes we forget though, when we think, oh, this person has my best interests at heart or whatnot, but they haven't been there before. They haven't been there before. So make sure that within your circle, you actually have people that you can lean on that actually have fruit that's apparent in their garden. Some people have never harvested. Because how are you going to lean on? Think about it. You're drawing from, because essentially when you are holding yourself accountable or allowing someone else to hold you accountable, you are eating from their plate, essentially.
Legit.
Some people's plates are empty. In fact, some people's plates will kill you. And watch out for the presentation or the appearance of fruit, because some of them are rotten. And you're there eating from.
Have you ever seen an avocado? Yeah. And it's like, I can't wait. And you open it, it's like the other day I bought 2 avocados from Aldi.
Brown.
Ripe and ready. I squeezed them. I said, I can have these avocados there. I cut into them moldy and all. And I said, I've wasted £1. Anyways, not going to get angry because I couldn't get a refund because I'd cut into the avocados. But anyways, many people are like that. Right? The appearance of fruit. And there may even be fruit there, but is the fruit rotten? You have to be careful. Because anyways, let's not talk too tough. But I love that analogy because you cannot, without fruit, there's no seeds. Absolutely. You can have a tree, but if there's no fruit, there's no new seeds. And people's advice are seeds in your life.
Absolutely.
When you come onto TMS, we're giving you seeds, and our only hope is that they will be able to take root and actually spring forth. It's a concept even within Christianity, the sower that scatters seeds. Some of them fall by the wayside. Some of them, find themselves really planted. Some of them are stolen. All of these different things you have to assess. Do you even have healthy seeds, first of all? Because some of the seeds people are going to sow into your life, dirty. And you're going to start seeing the fruits in your life.
Some of them are weeds,
And some of them are weeds. And that's the thing. There's the seeds that weeds grew amongst them and choked them out. And so be careful and assess, do you have fruit? Do I want to reproduce your fruit in my life? If I do, then I need your seeds. I need your gems. I need your wisdom. I need your guidance. I need your advice. But if I don't like these fruits after inspection, respectfully, I'm going to just look. But I don't need you to sow. Social media, it's hard to gauge people's fruits. It's hard, so I'm glad she said that about the money thing.
No, but even
Y'all
though I know
know I
you,
get.
fam, I was happy when you were talking about the health and wellness thing. I was like, yes, girl.
Yeah,
I
I'm
know
joking.
that's right. It's all about balance. It's all about.
It's all about balance.
What's the word? Interdependency.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
I learned that from a very wise lady called Renee Kabugu.
Stop.
Wow. This episode has been robust.
Comprehensive.
Robust, comprehensive.
Hench.
I like it. We hope that this has really blessed you.
Honestly.
And we actually want to know your thoughts. What do you think about doing the internal work? Boundaries. Seeds. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comment section below on YouTube, or follow us on Instagram at To My Sisterhood, and you can at us and come and just talk to us about your thoughts, engage with our posts, help boost and spread the sisterhood as well, so that we can continue pouring into you and pouring into each other and journeying together. You're not doing this alone, sis. You're doing it with us. So if you want to know more about how we are journeying in our day-to-day life, you can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter actually at Renee Kapuku and at CD Boating.
Lovely jubilee. That was
Lovely
jubilee. But we hope you guys enjoyed that episode. And of course, we referenced a couple stuff that, we share on our mailing list. And sisters, don't forget to join, because there's some very special things coming up. I can neither confirm nor deny, but I can confirm that you should be on the mailing list. You can sign up via the link below, www.tomysisters.com, so that you don't miss another glow and growth tip from us. Sisters, pals, friends, it's been real.
Comrades.
I like
comrades.
I like that,
Comrades.
But it's giving me very calm marks.
Sisters in arms.
What
does that even mean?
It's giving me beret.
You're so annoying. It is though. It's very much giving revolution.
It's giving me revolution. The revolution shall be televised. Anyways, guys,
it shall be televised. Subscribe.
That was good. Y'all gonna be sick of us by the end of this year. By the end of this year, y'all gonna be sick of us. Anywho, sisters, you have a fantastic time wherever or however you're listening to this. If you're on YouTube, hey. If you're on Spotify, Google, wherever. Apple. You have a fantastic rest of your day.
Yeah.
And we'll see you very soon. And remember, keep glowing and growing.